Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP. Nick is here in attendance with me once again because today we're going to be going through our recap of this past NXT. This will take place 2 nights ago as of recording, so this will be the 18th of March. And how about we break everything down and we talk about everything that went on throughout the show, and let's give our immediate reactions to it all. So, kicking off NXT would be a match between Chelsea Green, the WWE Women's United States Champion, and her challenger in this particular contest, Sol Ruka. This dates back to a tag team match that the two would be part of, I think, the week before, and Sol Ruka would actually pin Chelsea Green during said match. That would lead into this contest then for the Women's United States Championship. Massive opportunity for Sol Ruka. Was she able to capture it? The answer is no, she was not able to. Chelsea Green, she was accompanied to the ring by her secret Hervis in the likes of Piper Niven and recently recruited Alba Fire. And they would pay dividends in the later stages of this matchup. So there'd be a part where Alba would basically help Chelsea get her foot onto the rope in order to avoid being pinned by Sol Ruka. Eventually Zarya would come in and step in, and she was already at ringside anyway supporting Sol. She would cancel out Alba Fire, but then Piper Niven, there's 2-on-1. She would then take out Zarya in order to basically just nullify her. The distraction would cause Sol Ruka to maybe let her guard down for a couple of moments. Chelsea Green was able to take advantage of that, and sooner or later she would be having her hand held above her head as the winner of the match and still the Women's United States Champion. This match was fine. It was good enough to start off the show. I wouldn't say it was like a spectacle or a classic or anything, but it was nice to see Chelsea Green get a really good reaction on NXT. I thought the crowd really welcomed her in. It seems to be, wherever she goes at the moment, even though she is, dubbed as this heel, people I think seem to really enjoy the character. I know for one, I really do enjoy what she's doing right now. I think she's doing tremendously well. Her character work, her gimmick, everything is going really, really well for her. And I'm enjoying the Secret Hervis as well as part of this whole sort of shenanigans stuff that she's got going on each week. But yeah, Sol Ruka, she looks as good as ever, really, to be fair. She's such a consistent performer in the ring. And yeah, it was nice to see her have a really big opportunity. There was a couple of moments where she really could have, won that title, especially with that kick out. With Alba Fire helping Chelsea foot onto the ropes. But yeah, a couple of moments where she really could have won it, and a couple of close calls, but Chelsea Green, still your winner. No real surprises there. It was very unlikely they were going to have the Women's United Championship change hands on NXT to somebody who isn't on the main roster. So how about we move on then to what followed that, and we would see the brand new NXT Women's Champion, Stephanie Vaquer, as well as obviously being the NXT Women's North American Champion. She would come down to the ring and she would basically bask in the glory of her win from last week against Julia. At Roadblock, that massive main event, title versus title, Stephanie versus Julia. Stephanie came out on top, and you could see that, it just meant basically a whole lot to her, as she would go into basically saying how she was given the opportunity to choose any brand she wanted when she joined WWE. She chose to go to NXT because she wanted to make it the best women's division that there is in wrestling. And honestly, it was absolutely stacked with, before Stephanie and Julia had arrived. And obviously since their arrival, it just seems to keep on getting better and better and better each and every week. So much adulation for the women's roster here on NXT. And Stephanie is literally at the top of that, of that illustrious group right now, holding both singles women's championships. She's the only woman to really hold 2 titles at the same time, without unification. So it's quite the impressive feat for her. But anyway, moving on, she would basically be hyping herself up, wanting her first challenger to come on down to look her in the eyes, because whoever it would be, she would issue the match to that person. We'd hear Jordynne Grace's music here. She would come down to the ring. She'd be talking to Stephanie as she was coming down. But basically, she got to ringside. She got blindsided by Jada Parker. Jada's been very vocal recently about wanting to challenge for the women's championships on NXT and to just be given more opportunities when it comes to those titles. So Jada lays out Jordynne Grace. She then steps into the ring, steps to Stephanie Vaquer, and basically calls her out and says, "You know what? I'm here. I'm looking you dead in the eyes. So you're gonna take me on next week on NXT." Stephanie would just happily accept it. She literally wanted her first challenger. As far as she's concerned, she got what she wanted. Jada gets what she wanted. Jordan Grace, yeah, she didn't get what she wanted. So I guess 2 out of 3 women, getting what they want here, not too bad. But I have a feeling Jordan Grace might get involved, perhaps later down the line when Jada gets an opportunity against Steph. Moving on, then we would go to a tag team match between Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura. They would be going up against Hank and Tank. Hank and Tank have been on this weird sort of like arc, I guess you could say, of recent times, getting advice from various people, trying different things, trying to succeed using said advice, and ultimately it doesn't work. This was another case of that happening. They'd spoken to the Hardys last week, who said, get more extreme. They tried to be extreme as they could be during this regular rules match, which I guess, you can do bits and bobs, but you can't do, the whole extreme experience in just a regular rules match. But they would, unfortunately for them, come out second best to Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura, who would get the victory in the tag team matchup. Yeah, it was a fun match. I quite enjoyed it, not gonna lie. The little bit of extreme, I suppose, that Hank Attack did show, made for a compelling contest. And Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura, they're quite a compelling tag team. I don't know, something about these guys. I just quite love watching them in the ring, especially Yoshiki. I just feel like he brings something different to NXT. And each time he steps in the ring, I can't help but just like have my eyes glued on it. I don't know, it's just something captivating about them. I'm not sure what it is, but I really do enjoy their matches. And this one was quite fun as well. It wasn't like a ultimate classic of all time or anything, but it was a fun watch. And it was a nice matchup to take place on NXT. We would then go over to another tag match, actually, and this would be the Culling. Yep, they finally got their name, as we alluded to last week on our podcast, and they would be going up against the D'Angelo family. So it would be from the D'Angelo family, it would be Luca Crucifino, Channing Sax Lorenzo, and it would be Adriana Rizzo. So the match would be going on. Previous to this, Tony D'Angelo was told by Channing Sax that it probably is a good idea that you say backstage for this one, because at the end of the day, with this matchup, Sean Spears is going to be at ringside, probably going to get a little desperate. We want the boss to be ready, like 100% fit for said title match when that takes place, the rematch for the North American Championship. So Tony D'Angelo is backstage, the match goes on, and it's pretty much as you'd expect, back and forth between both teams. D'Angelo family gets into a bit of a rally, and they're starting to look on top, looking to try and close out the contest. And then suddenly, Tony D'Angelo, the camera goes to him backstage. He's watching on. He's happy that his team's doing well, and he gets blindsided. He gets attacked. He gets assaulted by these PC thugs that we've seen over the last a couple of months now, in various sort of times, basically just attacking various people. And now they're attacking Tony D'Angelo. So there really isn't anybody they're not targeting at this point. And the distraction caused by the attack and the assault on D'Angelo would be enough for the Culling to take advantage and to secure the victory here against the D'Angelo family. So yeah, as to how this one's going to play out going forward, that Sean Spears Tony D'Angelo rematch for the North American Championship seems to be in the works. People keep talking about it, so I'm assuming that's going to take place. But yeah, the guys that keep attacking people, they are becoming, I don't know, just like more and more random with who they're attacking each time, I feel. Like nobody's safe at this point. So I guess you could really say who is next. I guess maybe we could find out a little bit more about that later on in the show, in the podcast. But how about we go over to you now, Nick? What did you think of the opening contests here? Those 3 matches plus the interaction between, I guess you could say, Jordan Grace, Stephanie Vicaire, and Jada Parker. It's all heating up on NXT after Roadblock.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed the opening match. Not so much for the in-ring content, but just Chelsea Green and her reign that's aging like a fine wine. Every week seems to get a little more comfortable, and the crowd seems to become a little more accustomed to her shenanigans. Typically, I'm not a fan of the heel interference, but something about this one just feels a little different. And Piper and Alba just selling it the way they do without like breaking character at all is impressive in itself. And the icing on the cake for me was the Pledge of Allegiance being recited throughout the match. Nothing not to like here. Chelsea continues to look good, and with the way that she's running this character, and then Sol Ruka and getting the spotlight looked pretty good as well. One thing I did note was the botched move on her end. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Either it was, and they both did a really good job of playing it off like it was intentional, or excuse me, it was intentional, and they both really did a good job of selling that it was, um, or it was, and again, they both did a really good job of selling. So regardless, whether it was a mistake or not, they both pulled it off and made it seem like it was part of the script. So yeah, regardless, whichever way that was, it ended up being a pretty entertaining match for what it was. Um, yeah, I think everyone walks away here looking better. Promo between Jada and Vicaire. Yeah, that was. I think Jada's been kind of calling that, and we kind of saw her talk to Mickey James last week as well. Saying that she needed to take her opportunities, and she did just that. Taking on Jordan Grace is no small feat, and you could argue maybe she went down a little too easy. But regardless, as you mentioned, I don't think that's the last we'll see of her in this particular spot. And yeah, a little more on that later. The Inamura and Briggs versus Hank and Tank. I think the result here is good in that Inamura and Briggs continue to solidify themselves as a tag team. And just for the record, I completely agree. Inamura is captivating, and something he does on screen is must watch in my opinion. And then Hank and Tank, I think at first, I didn't care for them at all, if I'm being perfectly honest. Um, but I think this storyline and that we're trying to figure out what works for us and the kind of baby face rise, I think that's perfect for them. And the comedic relief playing into that, I feel like that works pretty good for them. But yeah, I enjoyed the match as well. As you mentioned, I mentioned in previous weeks, I think Inamura and Briggs, it's just my time before they get gold on them. The family versus the Colling. Yeah, this one's been brewing for a while, right? The backstage segment when the underboss mentioned that that the Don should stay backstage was interesting, and they played it off like that was going to be a breaking point, but it wasn't until the Maps faction ends up attacking him backstage during the match and essentially costing the family the match. Um, yeah, I think this was the right decision. The Colling obviously can't eat a loss already, and unfortunately for the family, it seems like they're kind of between a rock and a hard place. They seem to have these internal, flirting with these internal struggles. They're also dealing with Colling, and then now they're also dealing with these mass figures who maybe potentially could end up going up against the family. Eventually, they have to pick an opponent, right? And it seems like one of these two factions in this match here would probably be the best choice. But and if the family is already flirting with that breakup, maybe that's who they're after. But yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. But overall, yeah, pretty interesting first half of NXT.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it was a very interesting way to get things started. I think the matches were quite fun. And yeah, more on the Stephanie Jade situation as we go on with our podcast here today. How about we move on to what took place next? We will go into a one-on-one match between JC Jane and Carmen Petrovich. And this sort of results back to like the week before where we'd have interactions between Fatal Influence and Carmen and Ashanti the Adonis. Going into this week, this one-on-one matchup was an opportunity for Carmen to get a little bit of payback and a little bit of retribution on 1/3 of Fatal Influence. So JC Jane was the target here for Carmen Petrovich. Didn't quite go Carmen's way, though. After a pretty back-and-forth matchup, one that I think Carmen was getting into a stride with, JC, moments where she would be in control as the heel, playing a good job here of just working through Carmen. I think it got to a point where Ashanti the Adonis on the outside, Carmen was starting to roll, was starting to get into a little bit of rhythm, and Ashanti would basically attempt to give Carmen a steel chair, would basically say, use this on her. It goes back to last week where Ashanti was hit by the steel chair from Fatal Influence. It's sort of like him trying to play a little throwback to last week and, basically say, use the revenge that you want to get. Literally use this chair. They hit me with it. deal it back with that. Carmen sort of seemed to think about it for a few seconds, whatever. It seemed to take a little while. That I think it actually was. But she would eventually say no. She's not going to take the steel chair. She would refuse it. She'd slide it back out the ring. She turned around. She'd actually hit a few moves in a row and keep the momentum going. But then JC Jane would quickly turn things around and would sooner or later be claimed the victor of the match. So I guess really the chair didn't play a massive part in this one, but I suppose because it didn't immediately lead to the win for JC, but it sort of provided a little bit of a distraction. I guess it got Carmen thinking, about whether she really wants to go to these extreme lengths to get these victories or not. I guess, and that's probably the take from this. Maybe Ashante wants to see a maybe more vicious side of Carmen Petrovich in these matches. Carmen isn't quite ready to unleash that just yet, and she's sort of playing with her inner demons, perhaps, as to whether she wants to or not. That's the take I'm getting from this. As to whether there's more to it than that, obviously I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, there was a little bit of altercation backstage between these two, Ashante and Carmen, a little bit later on in the night, and seemed to be they weren't quite on the same page then. So yeah, there's something not quite right mentally there between the two. But JC Jane getting a big victory here as part of Fatal Influence. Don't remember the last time JC won a singles match. This is good for her, to be fair. And yeah, Fatal Influence back on the winning side of the column. We'd then go into a one-on-one match, and it would be a singles debut for Ricky Saints. Obviously, recently only having arrived in WWE, literally about a month ago now. He's only had a couple of matches. His first one being a tag team match a few weeks ago. So this is his first singles matchup. He would go one-on-one with Ridge Holland, and I think this was a nice way to get him his first singles victory here. Ridge Holland, he's had a lot of heat on him in the past. I don't know, let's say a few months or so now. Obviously goes back to the Chase U time. I think he really got some big heat then. Ricky Saints obviously playing this babyface type persona for now. And has basically had this sort of I don't know about gimmick, but this sort of personality trait where he's been basically noticing how everybody's so aggressive in NXT. And actually, I never really well, I guess I did notice it, but I didn't notice how prominent it was. Everybody really is aggressive on NXT. And with Ricky pointing it out, I just sort of think to myself now, wow, literally every other angle has aggression in it. And everybody is basically aggressive towards each other. So maybe Ricky has a really good point there. Either way, regardless, the match was good enough to showcase what Ricky's capable of doing. Thought he'd showed himself off pretty well, and yeah, pretty solid performer. One that I think is going to do very, very well here in NXT. And yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before he gets into some big matches, and he'll be pushing for some singles championships as well. But yeah, enjoyed it. Was a good debut singles capacity for Ricky Saints, and Ridge Holland taking a loss. Yeah, it is what it is for him. We would then go into our main event. This would be for this would be an NXT Underground match. Big rivalry here between Trick Williams and Eddie Thorpe over the past couple of months or so. The last time they met, Eddie Thorpe would actually defeat Trick Williams, surprisingly, in that strap match. And this would be a bit of revenge here for Trick Williams in the end, because he would defeat Obafemi in this he'd defeat Eddie Thorpe in this NXT Underground match. Quite a fun watch. I think the Underground matches, you either love them or you hate them, I think, in my personal opinion. This one was a pretty good one. In terms of I think what helped Trick here is that he didn't have to show off his technical ability too much, and he was allowed to basically just be very aggressive towards Eddie Thorpe. Eddie would show the fight back to Trick as well. There was an announce table spot throughout the early stages of the contest. And yeah, it was just basically two men that hate each other, getting vicious with one another. And that sort of transpired into the post-match sequences, because once Trick Williams had won the contest, Eddie Thorpe disappeared from the action. We would then get Trick grabbing a microphone, and he would call out Obafemi, the NXT champion. Trick just wants his NXT championship back. As far as he's concerned, he's not done with the title that Obafemi now has. So he would call out Oba. Oba would come on down, and the lights would go off pretty much immediately when the two have a stare down. And then we would see the thugs who attacked earlier in the night, Tony D'Angelo. They would appear in the crowd, sort of like Shield-esque sort of vibes from that sort of walking through the crowd type thing, but they would all appear in different parts of the crowd. We would then have Javon Evans, who would storm down to the ring. He had previously in the night warned Trick Williams about the threat that has been posed by these attackers in recent weeks, and they're still prominent now. Trick didn't really want to listen to him. Javon Evans basically get up in the face of Trick and Obafemi and basically say, look, are you listening now? They're right here, listen to me. There'd be a bit of a brawl between all the three men. Eventually, it would actually result in Obafemi getting laid out by Javon Evans, and I think he was aiming for Trick Williams. So yeah, it was quite an awkward situation here. But the very final shot at the end would be that stare down between Obafemi and Trick Williams to end the night. But yeah, a bit of a brawl. The thugs watching on from the crowd. We even had a segment earlier as well. I think I just sort of glossed over all the in-ring moments here, where Jada Parker would be confirmed to be having an NXT Women's Championship match against Stephanie Vaquer next week on NXT. And Stephanie's pulling double duty because she's also going to be defending her NXT North American Women's Championship against Fallon Henley in the main event of NXT next week. So lots of things going up soon. Stephanie Vaquer's pulling double duty. These thugs are back in and attacking here, there, and everywhere. And they're, sort of like laying out their targets, maybe watching on from a distance in this particular main event. But what do you think of the Underground match? What do you think of Ricky Saints' singles debut? And how do you think this, sort of like relationship between Ashanti the Adonis, Carmen Petrovic is going to play out in the future, as well as Stephanie Vaquer pulling double duty?
Yeah, JC Jane and Carmen match was good enough as well for me. Yeah, it's clear that the Adonis is they're going to flirt with whatever that controversy is, whether it's she's not being extreme enough to win matches or they just have a style differences. You mentioned we see that kind of in the background later when Jada is cutting a promo backstage. So yeah, curious to see where that one goes as well. I think it's good, for JC to get a win here as well. As you mentioned, it's been a while. Ricky Saints' debut against Rich Holland. Yeah, the match was good enough. I feel like I think he was just selling the back injury, but part of me kind of wondered maybe if it was, because he seemed like he was struggling a bit there. Again, similar to this old Ruka match, he's just doing a really good job of selling. I think that's the case. I think we probably would have heard more from that since then if that was an actual injury. But it felt like it did take away quite a bit of his repertoire, so to speak. Which leads me to my possibly hot take, I guess, in that, granted this is his first one-on-one match and everything else has, been a tag match and whatnot. But I'm not 100% sold on Ricky Saints in ring. I think it's zero question that he has the mic skills and the character work to be a big star. But I think I need to see a little more in ring work. And as I mentioned, solely watch WWE, so I don't have any other promotions to base that off of. But yeah, I need to see a little more before I'm ready to dub him the next big thing on NXT. And yeah, I was just not sold yet. So we'll see. I think it helps him in that as we've mentioned, the men's division in WWE does need stars. So I think he'll probably get there regardless. But I'm just not there yet. So we'll see where that goes in the upcoming weeks and where he ends up on the Stand and Deliver card. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, the Stephanie Vaquer pulling double duty next week. An interesting choice. Even more interesting is that the NXT Championship will lead off the show, whereas the NXT North American Championship will main event the show, as mentioned on NXT. I think that kind of shows some things and might be relatively obvious. I think the NXT Championship will probably be interference seen from Jordan Grace to continue that feud. And then does that mean that Fallon Henley will get back a North American title if they're main eventing? If recent weeks have told us anything, a title shot at the main event has voted quite well for the challengers. Does Fallon Henley get her title back? It seems pretty quick, and why would Vicaire pull double duty? If they were going to give her both titles, why only keep that on for a couple weeks? I feel like it kind of loses the point of what we were trying to do by giving her both titles. But we'll wait and see what happens next week, and then we can go from there. The main event, yeah, you mentioned either loving them or hating them, the underground matches, and I personally am one that just can't stand them. They're a notch above. They're a notch above strat matches in that they typically end quicker. That's my opinion on those. This match didn't really change that. It was relatively quick, and Trick getting the win, I think, was the right call. We were shocked that he didn't get the win in the strat match. So, yeah, I think Trick winning here to elevate him back to the main event, it appears, and then Eddie Thorpe can continue playing the I don't get respect card. I think that works. Oba and Trick feels like we've been here recently, but then Javon showing up to kind of change that. And then the Four Wild Dogs, as Booker T dubbed them earlier in the night, being in the crowd, and that was the first time we've seen them talk that in terms that we could clearly understand. Anyways, their backstage segment earlier in the night, basically saying no one's safe, and then questioning if they had made a statement for the night, and then going out here to make another statement, I guess, by standing in the crowd. I suppose that was what did it for them. Yeah, interesting to see, and Javon getting laying down Oba. That was part of the statement, I think, trying to prove that he does belong here, as their interaction earlier in the night with Trick Williams. He basically stated, "You're not me, and we're not the same." So Javon proving that he does belong here. If all of that holds true, and then Vicaire for the NXT Women's Championship, we got 2 triple threats for the main titles at Stand and Deliver, possibly would be interesting. On the women's side, obviously, it makes a ton of sense because we just have that much talent. On the men's side, I don't know. I don't know if Javon's quite ready for main event yet. That's just me personally. But I think you'd be remiss if you didn't think that the three of them will make for an interesting contest. So, yeah, we'll see where they go, and we'll see where this Mace faction, whenever they get a name, we'll call them that. We saw how long it took the calling for them to get their name. So we'll see where they play into this. But yeah, we're a day short of a month here away from Stand and Deliver. So we'll see where all the chips fall. And yeah, overall, I feel like this was a pretty good NXT. A slight step down maybe, but it felt like the overall build, everything is progressing towards Stand and Deliver. The women's side obviously will become much more clear after next week, and then felt like the show is more focused on the men's side, which is good, because I think they're the ones that need more time at the moment. So yeah, overall interesting and building to Stand and Deliver, which is what we want at the end of the day. Like I said, step down, probably give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Main event didn't quite do it for me, and the rest of the matches, nothing really special, but overall the messages were clear for me.
Yeah, the direction seems to be pretty clear as to where things are going. Obviously, we can theorize and discuss maybe what we think of the double duty from Stephanie Vicaire next week as to how that's all going to turn out. I'm certainly hoping for one thing that you've sort of alluded to earlier, but yeah, when it comes to all the other pictures, they seemingly are progressing bit by bit. Obviously, Stand and Deliver's coming up, so naturally we're going to have to be getting into those big sort of matches, and I'm assuming we're going to be seeing some big ones sort of like materializing very, very soon across the board and across the show. But yeah, I think NXT for this week for me personally, yeah, maybe was a little bit of a step down, but obviously last week was Roadblock, so I feel like it's very difficult to really compare it anyway. But I think, yeah, I'd probably give this NXT a 7 out of 10. I liked it. I think it was good, but I don't think it's really going to set the world alight. And yeah, there were a couple of nice moments, but I don't think there's really going to be much I got to remember going forward. It's quite interesting, the attackers each week. Dark State, if we're calling them that. There are a load of names that went around on NXT. I'm not entirely sure what to call them just yet. But yeah, I think it's very interesting to see where exactly their vision is. I think that's quite compelling for me at the moment, quite confusing. So, yeah, I'm interested, but I'm just not sure what's going down with that right now. But yeah, NXT I think is looking good in the long run. Stand Delivers coming up, so yeah, we'll be pushing towards that, and it should be good. Guys, thank you very much for tuning on into the Push with Dick and KP. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, then please hit a like on the video and subscribe to our channel, where we're going to be releasing more and more of these as time goes on. SmackDown recap will be coming up next from this Friday, and that's going to be in Italy, Bologna. We're going to be going over to that one very, very soon. But for now, thank you very much for tuning on in to The Push with Nick and KP. Let us know in the comments what you thought, whether you liked or disliked anything that we said, and we'll see you all in the next one. Thank you very much, everybody, and see you next time.